Welcome to Drummers Review. I'm Nolly and today we're looking at a Pearl Session Studio Classic shell pack. The Session series has long been the choice for drummers looking for a workhorse kit with many of the same features as the Masters series but at a lower price point. This particular shell pack features a 22 by 16 inch bass drum, 10 by 7 and 12 by 8 inch rack toms, and a 16 by 14 inch floor tom. All of these shells feature a 6-ply 7.5mm birch and caper shell construction, and the pack comes in at £1,235. Let's take a deeper listen and come back for some more discussion afterwards. Our initial impression of this shell pack is that it's quite unassuming and has a workman-like look. To me, the Sequoia red finish is not particularly inspiring, but the drums still have a professional look, aided by the classic Pearl badges and the high-quality looking hardware. From the factory, these drums come with Chinese-made Remo UT series drum heads. You've got something close to a clear pinstripe over ambassador setup on the toms, and there's both power stroke batter and reso heads on the kick drum. Speaking of the bass drum, we felt like with the included pillow it had loads of attack and presence, but it didn't have very much in the way of sub-low end, and it certainly didn't have a bloom that filled the room. This kind of bass drum sound can work well in the studio, especially when you have multiple mics to help you, but in other situations you might find it comes across a little bit thin or lacks body. Similarly, we felt that the rack toms had bags of attack and cut to them, but at the same time they didn't have that much body and the note didn't seem to hang around for all that long. They still mic'd up well and you can get a very usable sound out of them, but they're not the biggest sounding rack toms we've ever heard. On the plus side, the floor tom was our favourite drum out of this shell pack. We felt that it had a nice amount of body to it, a decent sustain, and it didn't need any muffling to get a great sound out of it under the microphone. Another positive to note is that these drums tuned up really easily and stayed in tune well, which is indicative of good hardware and bearing edges. We think that Pearl has made a good decision in labeling these drums as a studio set. The thinner sound with a little bit less body is going to mean that it's going to cut through music a little bit more easily when recorded. However, it might sound a little bit thin in live situations and certainly if there aren't microphones on the kit. To be honest, it's a little bit difficult for us to know exactly who the target audience of this drum kit is. At that price point, it's certainly not going to be a student purchase, and it's kind of out of the top end of the intermediate level too. For us, perhaps two demographics come to mind. One would be older drummers who don't want a particularly contemporary looking drum kit, yet aren't looking for something vintage either. And the other might be studio owners who want a good performing and sounding drum kit without spending money on a particularly flashy kit. In terms of build quality, these shells are decent, but not the best we've ever seen. The floor tom in particular features quite a large crease where the plies overlap inside the shell. And in general, the wood doesn't have a particularly beautiful grain to it either. On the positive side, that gloss finish is very well applied and it almost has a sparkly look from a distance. The shell hardware is probably one of the best aspects of these drums. It's all of a very high quality, very durable and usable too. It's also worth noting that we are big fans of the Pearl OptiMount rack mount system that does allow you to twist the toms over should you want to access the reso head. The rack toms with those mounts are very easy to position. It's worth noting that while here we've gone with an offset setup, you could very easily mount one tom onto each cymbal stand on either side. We also really like those chunky bass drum spurs, and it is a nice touch that everything is memory locked too. So all in all, we really couldn't say that we've been bowled over by this kit. It's not that there's anything particularly wrong with it, but at the same time, it's just not that impressive. For that money, there's a huge amount of other drum kits out there that are great, and even looking within Pearl's own range, we feel like the Export might be a better value for money kit that performs pretty much just as well. The best thing about this kit, in our opinion, is that great sounding floor tom. The worst thing is probably just the value for money. For us, it's just left in a bit of no man's land. But let us know what you think. Don't forget to leave us a comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next time at Drummers Review.